The private lounge pulsed with a low, synthetic beat, the air thick with the scent of expensive cologne and spilled liquor. Under the violet glow of the recessed lighting, a man knelt on the plush carpet. This was Caleb. 2 hours ago, a careless step on Liam's pristine designer sneakers had landed him here, delivered by Liam's hired muscle. They'd been rough, leaving a constellation of dark bruises blooming on Caleb's jaw and a split on his lower lip that still welled with blood. But his eyes, the color of burnt umber, were fixed on Liam with an unnerving intensity, like a wolf watching from the shadows. Liam swallowed, the gesture feeling loud in the sudden quiet. He had intended to make Caleb lick his shoes clean, a textbook humiliation for a slight against him. But seeing the man now, the fine fabric of his shirt stained and torn, Liam's resolve wavered. He was, at his core, a man who followed rules, who believed in a certain civic order. This felt like a step too far. Besides, he'd heard whispers that Caleb had already been fielding trouble from other patrons all night, just trying to get through his shift at this upscale club. A wave of unexpected empathy washed over him. They were both just trying to get by, in their own drastically different ways. With a sigh, Liam flopped onto a low-slung leather sofa, pulling out his phone and feigning disinterest. He scrolled through social media feeds, the minutes stretching into an eternity. He was waiting not for an apology, but for her. Why wasn't she here yet? The whole scene depended on her arrival. Despite the circumstances, Caleb knelt with a ramrod-straight spine, his hands bound behind his back with one of Liam's own silk ties. Caleb's voice, a low rumble, finally broke the silence, questioning if Liam had any intentions. At that exact moment, Liam's phone screen went black, its battery dead. He set the useless device aside, his gaze reluctantly returning to the man on the floor. It wasn't that Caleb was difficult to look at. As the story's protagonist, he possessed a raw, magnetic appeal in his sharp features and lean frame. But in this charged atmosphere, Liam feared that looking too long would be a form of surrender. Liam admitted he was waiting for someone. Caleb's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. He suggested the person Liam was waiting for might not show up. As Liam watched, baffled, Caleb's gaze intensified, a flicker of heat in their depths. He proposed a wager, his voice a husky whisper, a bet on whether she would ever walk through that door. In the end, Liam untied the silk tie from Caleb's wrists. The script schedule had been breached. Some unknown variable had thrown the timeline off. This complicated things. Liam's role was meant to be a brief cameo. He would deliver his arrogant lines once the heroine appeared, and then his part would be done. Now he was stuck. His best option was to leave. While Caleb flexed his freed hands, Liam darted for the heavy oak door. He twisted the brass handle, putting his full weight into it, only for the entire mechanism to come off in his hand with a grim metallic click. The door itself remained stubbornly shut. A cold dread seeped into him. He banged his fists against the wood, his calls for help swallowed by the soundproofed walls. Caleb approached slowly, his expression unreadable. He calmly explained a peculiar rule of the club. VIP lounges were locked from the outside for the entire night to ensure absolute privacy. Liam stared at him, aghast at the absurdity. He couldn't fathom how such an establishment was still in operation. But a more chilling realization dawned on him. This was not how the story was supposed to go. He asked, his voice trembling slightly, if this meant they were trapped here all night. Caleb was now standing so close that Liam could feel the warmth radiating from his body. He leaned in, his breath ghosting against Liam's ear as he murmured a question about Liam's recklessness, coming into a place without understanding its rules. Liam's entire body went rigid. He kicked the door again in a futile burst of frustration. Caleb's soft chuckle was the only reply. He remarked on the excellent soundproofing. Giving up, Liam slumped against the wall. Caleb moved to the bar, his long fingers deftly mixing a cocktail. The clinking of ice against crystal was the only sound. He created a drink of ethereal blue and offered it to Liam. Liam shook his head, confessing that he didn't drink. With a slight shrug, Caleb tilted his head back and drained the glass. A faint line of blue liquid traced a path from the corner of his mouth, over the sharp line of his jaw, and down his throat. As the alcohol settled, a subtle frown creased his brow. He looked at Liam, his eyes narrowed. He had underestimated him, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low. There was something else in the drink. He wondered aloud if Liam had enjoyed his little game, and if it was now his turn to play. Before Liam could process the words, Caleb had closed the distance between them. The discarded silk tie was suddenly tight around Liam's own wrists. With one hand, Caleb lifted Liam's arms above his head, pressing him firmly against the cool, unforgiving wall. The chill at his back was a stark contrast to the fire igniting in his stomach. Caleb's free hand began a slow, deliberate exploration over his body. He proposed they share the effects of the drink. Then his mouth was on Liam's. By the time clarity returned, it was far too late. Caleb truly did possess a stamina that seemed more than human. Liam's eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. The next day, when the lock finally clicked open, he gathered his clothes and stumbled out of the room, Caleb still asleep on the sofa. He ran directly into his own security detail. They rushed forward, asking if he was all right. Through gritted teeth, Liam asked who had locked the door. The men shuffled their feet, no one admitting fault. Liam waved a dismissive hand, telling them to forget it. One of the guards peeked into the room and muttered about whether Liam had taught the bartender a lesson, noting he'd heard crying the night before. Liam felt a fresh wave of humiliation. He had been taught the lesson. Just as he was about to flee the club, a petite figure blocked his path. He looked down to see a young woman with a sweet face and a fiery glare. It was Chloe. She stood with her hands on her hips, demanding to know who had hurt Caleb. With a snap of her fingers, her own bodyguards surrounded Liam's group. She ordered them all to go back and apologize. Liam's eyes widened. She was finally here. In this world, Chloe was the heiress who was meant to save Caleb, the dispossessed heir, from his dark and difficult life. They had a shared past, though neither had recognized the other yet. She was the light to his darkness. Her intervention at this moment was supposed to be the critical turning point in their relationship. She had Liam's men drag him back into the lounge. At the commotion, Caleb slowly opened his eyes. His gaze, however, bypassed Chloe entirely, landing squarely on a bound Liam. Chloe pushed Liam forward, telling Caleb that he needed to stand up for himself and retaliate, otherwise people would walk all over him. Liam squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable. If he could just endure this, his part would be over. But the expected pain never came. He cautiously opened his eyes to see Caleb gently untying the ropes, his expression surprisingly soft. He asked Liam why he hadn't run when he'd had the chance. The plot had completely fractured. In a desperate attempt to force things back on track, Liam snatched a bottle of champagne from the table and poured it over Caleb's head. He told Caleb he wasn't even worthy of cleaning his shoes. He hurled insults, calling him cheap and easy, then threw all the cash from his wallet at Caleb's face before bolting from the room. That night, he booked a flight and left the country. For years, he hid abroad, reasoning that if he stayed away long enough, His minor role would be forgotten, and he could return to his life once the main characters found their happy ending. From a distance, he monitored the news. Caleb had been reclaimed by his wealthy family, his status soaring overnight. There were rumors of an engagement between his family and Chloe's. It seemed the story was correcting itself. But just as he was about to relax, he received a call. His own family's company was on the verge of collapse. His father summoned him home. He saw Caleb again at an exclusive gala. Liam was there merely as a token representative for his family's struggling business. Caleb, however, was the undeniable center of the universe, surrounded by industry titans. He was broader now. The sharp lines of his face settled into a mature, unyielding mask of cool indifference. And at his side was Chloe. When Caleb's gaze swept the room and met his, Liam instinctively ducked behind a large floral arrangement, his heart hammering against his ribs. He couldn't afford to attract Caleb's attention now. If the story of their night together ever got out, the fallout would destroy what was left of his family. As he tried to slip away, he collided with someone, sending a glass of red wine crashing to the floor. It was Preston, the arrogant son of a business rival and Liam's old adversary. Preston sneered, questioning how someone like Liam had even been allowed in. Liam mumbled an apology, offering to pay for the damage. Preston laughed, claiming that the spilled wine was worth more than Liam's entire family. He then gestured to the shattered glass on the floor, suggesting Liam could make amends by licking it clean. Before Liam could respond, a powerful hand gripped his wrist. Caleb was there, his expression a thundercloud. He ignored Preston completely, his dark eyes fixed on Liam. He asked, his voice dangerously quiet, if Liam had something to say to him. Liam was trapped, the memories of that night flooding back, making his knees weak. Before the standoff could escalate, Preston's father appeared and dragged his son away. The moment Caleb turned, Liam fled. He lingered outside for a long time, but his father's plea to secure a powerful ally echoed in his mind. With a heavy heart, he re-entered the ballroom. Caleb was seated at the main table, Chloe beside him, their heads bent in quiet conversation. A strange, unwelcome pang of jealousy struck Liam. He found an empty seat at a table in the far corner. His friend Jake sat down beside him, asking why he looked so miserable. Jake noticed him staring at Caleb and guessed that the powerful CEO might be the source of his trouble. Suddenly, Caleb looked up, his eyes finding Liam's across the crowded room. He called out his name, his voice cutting through the chatter. He gestured to the empty seat next to him, then, with a smirk, to his own lap, offering Liam a choice. Humiliated, Liam chose the chair. The man beside Caleb quickly vacated it. Chloe looked at him in surprise, recognizing the little young master from years ago. Liam spent the rest of the evening trying to be invisible, focusing on his food. When the gala ended, Caleb, unsteady from numerous toasts, was being supported by Chloe. Liam tried to slip away, but Caleb's sharp glare rooted him to the spot. Caleb dismissed Chloe, telling her that Liam would see him home. It was not a request. In the silent, cavernous space of Caleb's car, Liam sat frozen. As the vehicle entered a tunnel, plunging the interior into darkness, Caleb's voice came from beside him, low and insistent. He asked again what Liam had to say to him. He watched Liam with an unnerving stillness. Then he unclasped his expensive watch and pressed a button. A glass partition rose, sealing them off from the driver. Before Liam could react, a large hand cupped his jaw. Caleb began to unbutton Liam's shirt, his fingers brushing against the pale skin beneath. He commented on Liam's trim waist, his voice a husky murmur. As his hand moved lower, he asked if his pants were too tight, if he needed help. Liam shook his head, biting his lip to keep from making a sound. Caleb then changed the subject, his tone suddenly all business. He mentioned that Liam's family needed an investment. The words hung in the air, a clear transaction. Seeing the tears welling in Liam's eyes, Caleb brushed a thumb across his cheek, remarking on how easily he cried. Liam finally broke, the words tumbling out in a rush of apology for everything he had done. Caleb's voice was laced with a dark amusement. He agreed that Liam had done wrong, and that wrongs required punishment. The car emerged from the tunnel, and light flooded the cabin. Caleb covered Liam's disheveled form with his own suit jacket. At his villa, he led Liam inside. A stern, older man was waiting in the living room, Caleb's father. He disapproved of Caleb bringing a man home, reminding him of his supposed engagement to Chloe. Caleb retorted that the engagement was announced without his consent, and that Chloe was just a friend. The argument escalated, with the father reminding Caleb that he could take everything away, sending him back to the gutter. Caleb downed a glass of water and stated he never wanted to acknowledge the man as his father in the first place. When Caleb entered the guest room where Liam was waiting, he found him eavesdropping by the door. He reassured Liam that his father would be leaving soon. Later, a butler brought Liam a drink, a supposed hangover cure from Caleb. Liam drank it. Soon after, a strange, unbearable heat spread through his body. When Caleb returned, he found Liam flushed and delirious, tearing at his collar. Caleb cursed, realizing his father had drugged the drink, a tactic intended for Chloe in the original story. Liam, overwhelmed by the drug, could only see Caleb as the antidote. He pulled Caleb's hand towards him, his actions pleading. Caleb's voice was strained as he told him to beg. The next morning, Liam woke to Caleb gently dabbing his skin with a warm towel. When he tried to protest, saying he could do it himself, Caleb simply smiled and said that a precious young master deserved to be pampered. He then informed Liam that he had to go to the office, but that Liam was to stay put. He gestured to a chair where several items were laid out. Fine leather restraints and a plush collar. He murmured that Liam would look beautiful in them. Liam's blood ran cold. He was being kept as Caleb's pet. That afternoon, driven by hunger, Liam crept out of the room. Seeing the front door unguarded, he made a break for it. He had nowhere to go, so when his friend Jake called and invited him for a drink, he agreed immediately. At the bar, a familiar blue cocktail in hand, he told Jake about his predicament, tearfully wondering how someone could be so straight one moment and so bent the next. Jake, after a moment of shock, patted his back and told him to love whomever he wanted. Fueled by alcohol and fear, Liam deleted Caleb's number and blocked all of his social media accounts. He didn't expect Caleb to show up at his family home the next day. Liam, still hungover, peeked out of his room to see Caleb standing in his living room, impeccably dressed and radiating an aura of immense power that seemed to dwarf the modest space. His father was stammering apologies. Caleb's gaze flickered towards Liam's door, and he was forced to come out. Caleb calmly asked why Liam had blocked him. Liam's father, confused, asked what had happened between them the previous night. Caleb smoothly covered, claiming Liam had accidentally scratched him. After his father left on an urgent errand, they were alone. Caleb offered Liam a piece of fruit, asking if running away was a habit. He cornered him, his voice low, reminding Liam that he'd had him investigated years ago. He knew everything. There was no escape. He lifted Liam into his arms and carried him into the bathroom, turning on the shower. Under the spray of cool water, Caleb demanded to know why Liam was so afraid of him. Liam finally confessed that he didn't know what was happening, that this wasn't right. Caleb's response was a fierce kiss. He told Liam it was never about revenge. It was because he wanted him. He made Liam say he liked him, and as the words left his lips, Liam knew they were true. He had been drawn to Caleb from that very first night in the club. He asked about Chloe. Caleb explained that Chloe had her own love, a woman she was now happily with. Turned out Chloe was in a similar predicament, forced into a role she never wanted. Later, as they were walking through the city, they passed Chloe and her girlfriend. Chloe waved, a genuine smile on her face. She thanked Liam, wished him luck, and said that being a protagonist wasn't easy. After she left, Caleb turned to Liam, a hint of jealousy in his eyes as he asked when they had become so close. Liam stood on his toes and kissed him, promising he would never run again. Caleb then asked the one question that had lingered since the beginning. He wanted to know why Liam had spared him that first night. Liam thought of Caleb's story, of all the hardship he was meant to endure. He looked into the eyes of the man he now loved and gave the only answer that mattered. It was because his heart ached for him. Caleb took his hand, their fingers intertwining. The road ahead was uncertain, a story unwritten, but for the first time, Liam didn't regret his decision.